We now have a panel discussion, and the topic is marketing and technology, two sides of the same coin. I would like to introduce our eminent set of panelists. Mr. Bharat Khatri, Country Head India, Zaxis. Mr. Vivek Bhargava, Chief Executive Officer at Dentsu Performance Group. Mr. Jose Leon, Chief Operating Officer, Indigo Consulting Publicis Group. Then we have Mr. Suvir Bajaj, co-founder, Foxy Moron and Zoom Media Network. Next, we have Mr. Sohil Karia, co-founder, Chief Design and Technology Director at Shebank. Mr. Anuj Kumar, co-founder, Chief Revenue and Operating Officer at Affle. And Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, co-founder at GameZop. Once again, this session will be moderated by Mr. Anil Vanwari. I think we have all the panelists. So welcome you all, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Farah. The world of the internet and digital has been a delight for all. Consumers who get access to information stay connected at the click of a button with friends, family, and the world at large. They shop, they stay entertained, and they stay engaged with the computer and their phones, and sometimes get disengaged from the near and dear ones, but that's a different story. For digital platforms and websites, it has meant lower entry barriers, lower costs, quick turnaround times, and new ways of partnering with businesses and helping them find customers amongst the audiences they have developed. Brands and agencies who have ridden these platforms and websites have been able to get customer insights, feedback, and more effective ways to acquire customers, as well as get a better return on marketing and advertising investments. Yes, while technology has been at the heart of this outreach and marketing has benefited, it comes with its challenges. The signposts and milestones of technology are constantly changing and moving forward, making it a very confusing, dizzying pace for many. Also, consumer interests and behaviors are hard to predict. Marketers can no longer stick their heads in the sand, nor can publishers, nor can platforms, and hope that educated guesses and the same old methods will work forever. We have a fabulous panel here. I mean, Farah has already introduced them to us to share with us their insights on marketing and technology in the digital world. A big hearty welcome to all of you guys. Good to have you here. So
Same
as
here,
I began,
morning, looking forward.
Morning. I look forward to. How do I pronounce your name? Is it Jose?
I'm used to my name getting pronounced in multiple ways. I'm okay. Jose is what my parents intended.
I prefer. Then I'll call you Jose. I'll call you Jose. Sure. Great. So the digital world presents lots of opportunities for marketers and agencies to connect with audiences effectively using technology solutions. Can each one of you name some of the ones you've used to great effect and got astonishing results for yourselves, for your clients? Who wants to begin? Anuj?
Yeah, I think there is enough and more new things happening in digital advertising every given day. And I think it's good to be on this panel and share some experiences on things which we are seeing the greatest growth happening right now. So I think while there are many areas as a company which we are involved with, but I think I'll call out two which I think are fairly significant. I think one is the growth which we are seeing in the entire programmatic advertising. And clearly that becomes very, very relevant because with the kind of data availability which exists in terms of targeting users based on what they're doing online or offline, and also doing the full funnel where you can actually pretty much use programmatic based data intelligence to educate users, spread brand awareness, and also track conversions. So I think that's an area which we have seen significant amount of growth happening. And I think it's good to see that even in the India market, bulk of the advertisers are now embracing programmatic pretty much as their default way of digital advertising. So I think that's more a method of trading, which I am seeing a lot of growth in. I think second is more from a consumer lens in terms of how consumers are engaging with technology. And I think that's where the devices where we are engaging with technology is constantly evolving. So from legacy PC screens to mobile screens, which is what the last wave was, I think now what we are seeing is that a number of connected devices is leapfrogged. And I think some of the things which have taken the greatest growth in the last few months actually have been things like connected TV. Because most consumers today, given the rise of OTT content and also the costs which are associated with TV or Fire Stick kind of devices, are choosing connected TV versus the traditional linear TV experience. And I think that's opening up a completely new domain for advertisers to leverage data while having the experience of television advertising, which clearly, from a storytelling standpoint, has always been supreme versus many other formats. So I think those are connected TV technologies for watches or our voice assistants. I think that's where I see a lot of technology evolution happening right now, and a lot more which is still to happen, given that a lot of these trends are largely taking shape over the last few months and will obviously fast track themselves over the next few quarters.
Okay, thanks for that. Bharat, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, I think whatever Anuj mentioned, I resonate with the same fact that so far, I think over a half decade, programmatic has been a clear shiner, whether it's the use of a demand side platform or the data management platform now getting evolved into a customer data platform, which a lot of marketers are calling a CDP, connecting online and offline is coming into as part of the always on marketing strategy. And I think with this pandemic, whatever we have seen so far over the last 9 months, the number of interactions with consumer has increased. When it comes to digital footprints, clearly, if I talk about 2019, where one particular customer was engaging maybe 10 or 12 times on digital platforms, now that interaction has almost gone 3x in the last 9 months, which again gave a big opportunity for technology to jump in. Some of the interesting space which has evolved over the last 6-9 months is the technology usage when it comes to creative. So during this pandemic, a lot of brands and a lot of agencies like us also realized that going with the traditional path of creative is also becoming challenging, considering we are working virtually, getting that creative approval, aligning the copy. So I think the use of technology in this short span of time on building meaningful creatives which are more personalized, plus the power of data-driven creatives, using technology to understand what's your location, what's your behavior, and how can we serve you customized video when you're watching any video platform rather than, again, serving you the same linear TV, is something is now becoming a fundamentals on how you will plan your digital video campaigns.
So you're basically talking about geofencing.
Geofencing is just part of, let's say, a technology where you are able to restrict the delivery of your campaign in a particular pin code or a geo. But more or less, apart from targeting, which I think technology on digital was offering for more than 2 decades, now I think the use of technology is not just in targeting or finding the right audiences. It's also about serving meaningful messaging to the brand from a brand point of view. So targeting comes as a by default proxy, which I will say that's why the brands are shifting budgets from traditional mediums towards digital. And again, the way, apart from targeting, digital started offering audience buying, which also became a primary use case when brands started investing on programmatic versus traditional, because here brands had the power to buy on audiences versus buying on placements. But now with these advancement in technology, whether we called it a use of artificial intelligence, converting an input into an output, or whether we call a use of a machine learning to process what type of audiences I should target, at what bid rate, and what type of creative I should serve. So I think it's coming now into a 360, not just into targeting.
Fantastic. Jose?
Yep. Yeah. So I think Anuj and Bharat, I'll just build on to what they just said, right? So it's that time of the year when there are a lot of agencies, third-party companies, neutral organizations which release trends for the next year, right? So if you look at the marketing technology trends, and there is one body globally which is kind of the most renowned one in terms of releasing the stack that is there, right, on marketing technology. So if you just look at in the last 5 to 6 years, right, from 900 odd platforms and solutions to right now we are sitting at 8,000 odd platforms and solutions in the marketing technology space, right? So there is a 8x growth of these platforms that have been there, right, in the just last 4 to 5 years, right? And if you have to bucket them, it's ad tech, content and experience, social, commerce, data and management. So these are the top 6 buckets within this marketing technology, right? So And there is huge growth in each one of them, right? We will be sitting 2021 end, and maybe this 8,000 would have gone to 10,000 or 15,000, right? So Bharat just, kind of built onto, some specific use cases of, serving contextualized experiences. Anuj also spoke about, similar things. So across all brands, across all categories, I think across ad tech, content and experience, social commerce, data, we spoke about here, CDP, and, getting onto the session before this was around cookies. So we know how CDPs, because first party is all you will have eventually. How will you build on to CDPs will come into very, very strong. Management, that's an evolving space. If you look at all the 6 buckets within marketing technology, right? Management has the lowest number of platforms today, but there are very strongly emerging trends there. For example, employee experience platforms, right? As we are shutting down and we are getting into the new normal, the focus on customer experience, or CX as we called it there. I'm not predicting this, but there is a EX that would evolve, which is employee experience, because there will be a lot of focus on how would you engage employees in the new normal. So interesting times ahead. As all of this evolving, one concern, or one big opportunity area for brands is to also look at their internal people and skill sets, right? For the last 10 years we have been talking about data is the new oil, right? But I hardly see a chief data officer in any large brands today, right? They don't invest in a mathematics honors doing algorithms and propensity modeling of looking at what can they do with petabytes of data sitting in their CRM, and how can they serve their customers more contextually. So I think things will emerge as we go ahead. Consumers are pushing brands to kind of do that. Platforms are enabling brands to do that, and it's interesting times ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Vivek.
Sure. So I think, just building on what has been said so far, right? One of the things that Jose mentioned about these 8,000 platforms, I think one of the things that, let me share with you a story, and I think that'll elaborate my point. 15 years ago, I used to work with ICICI Bank. And what we would do is, what people would search for in Google, you would take that information, that keyword, and then use that keyword to make a call at the call center to convert the lead. So if a certain person searched for quick loan, speed of dispersal was sold to them. A person searched for something called Novo chairs. These are dental chairs that cost 15 lakh rupees. It means there was a dentist trying to set up a clinic. And regional sales manager would come and say, listen, we've got 35 different brands. We'll give you discount on all the brands. So it became a solution rather than a sale of a personal loan. And a normal personal loan was 50,000 rupees. This dental personal loan was 50 lakh rupees. The problem is that 15 years have passed. We still not connect the ad tech world in the MarTech world effectively. So if you see 20 ads of pizzas and burgers, you don't click on it, you click on a keto salad ad, you download a Swiggy app. Unfortunately, Swiggy starts with you as a virgin person, right? It doesn't know what the ad tech world has done with you. And therefore, 20 technology on one side, 20 technology on the MarTech side, right? So basically, if you could transfer all that data into the MarTech world, the MarTech would, let's say, be very effective, because the first order that you need to prove that your advertising has worked would actually get done, right? The fact of the matter is it's not being done. Second thing is, there is so much of information we have in the MarTech world. Again, we're not using that information effectively to make advertising world more effective. So basically, what I'm attempting to do through our partnership with Netcore and Dentsu is that we need to connect these disparate sources. And these disparate sources are there in every single system, right? There is a Shopify and Amazon, where you get deep information about the consumers on Shopify, and you get scale from Amazon. If somebody could collect data from both these things, and then, so my belief is that the opportunity, one technology that I think is companies like me or a lot of people are going to work on, is how do we connect disparate systems, which basically by combining them, you can create a significant efficiency on both the systems. And I think that's one area. So when you have these complications of 8,000 technologies, the more and more disparate systems you can connect, you'll be creating a lot of efficiency on both the systems. And then you can play around with a lot with it, right? So once you connect the bridge, then you can, enrich it with second-party data. You can do a lot of other things with it, go after lesser, smaller audiences, etc. Second thing is, I think if you take the optimization bit of advertising, whether it's programmatic or anything, right? I think what people need to do is that there is 60-70% which Google and Facebook would control, but there is 30% out of which I say 10% Amazon controls. Now, I feel that, we build one tech which just does optimization on Amazon, right? It just optimizes spends on Amazon. So I think each one of us can take a smaller publisher, even if it's only 3% of India's market, right? But you become the best to optimize that publisher. There's a lot of money to be made, right? Because that 3% could be 1,000 crores. Amazon is 10%, could be 5,000 crores, right? So the fact of the matter is there is a huge opportunity of taking this niche things which can be optimized. So there are two areas that I feel the future trends that I look at is that people are going to create companies that connect disparate systems and create efficiencies in both the systems. I think MarTech and AdTech is the lowest hanging fruit. Obviously, you need a very, very strong CRM partner and a very strong AdTech partner to attempt it, because all the larger platforms have acquired 40 companies each, and integrating 40 into 40 companies is a nightmare. But that's one part of it. But there are a lot of opportunity in integrating these systems. And second thing is finding out these niche opportunities of maybe building an optimization tool for Amazon or building an optimization tool for something else. But that will immediately deliver value, right? And I can go on into 20 different things, but I think broadly speaking, yes, I can talk about VR and AR and some other things that are exponential in nature, which are going to really affect the advertising and the media industry. But I would like to stick to these two things that I think where the opportunity is and where I see the trends going.
Fantastic. Sohail, over to you now. I mean, you all guys are masters of your art and science, of course. What happens, Sohail? Can you start speaking?
Yeah. No, so I actually just building on what Vivek said and what Anuj and Bharat said. One of the things that I've seen over the last 1 year is that brands have actually moved more into the D2C model, and their focus is more. And the way I look at MarTech is keeping consumers at the center of the experience. Leverage MarTech solution. And the way I see the split is on how B2B. Sorry, am I audible? Hello?
You're having an unstable connection, Sohail. Unstable.
Sorry, is this better?
This is better now, Sohail. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Sorry. So what I was saying is that yes, over the last 1 year or 8 months, 9 months, what I've seen in my experience is that brands are now focusing more in the direct to consumer space when it comes to the B2C model. And what I'm seeing with B2B businesses is that the website is sort of becoming the focus area for how they want to communicate with their customers. And some of the interesting things that I've seen is when we of course spoke about Shopify, how it's allowing businesses to quickly get their direct consumer model off the ground quickly. What's interesting is when we merged this with a good marketing stack or a good marketing automation solution, we've seen that brands are able to sort of get a 2x, 3x return on retaining their existing consumers. So while we spoke about programmatic buying and while we spoke about driving traffic to the website, it's also essential to look at how we're retaining these customers and how we're serving these customers better during sale or post-sale. So personalizing their experience on the website, post-sales, how we're sort of nudging them every 30 days, 60 days to sort of repeat their buying purchase and increase either increase the average order value by personalizing the experience on the website, or either increasing the returning customer rate by sort of nudging them again to stick back to the same brand. So that's what I see in the B2C space. In the B2B space, what's been interesting to see is one of the customers that we've been working with, they've sort of wanting to personalize the experience based on the kind of industry that the person is visiting from. And this sort of touches upon what Vivek spoke about, where AdTech and MarTech can sort of fuse in with each other. So if you're able to, you're relying on third-party data, if you're able to identify, which there are tools as of today like Clearbit, you have demand base that are doing this, you're able to identify what industry the person is coming from or what kind of business the person is coming from, you're able to customize or personalize the overall experience on the website to talk to someone only from an automobile industry, or you're able to customize the experience talking to someone only from a retail industry. So those are two areas that I see MarTech to be effectively used, keeping customer experience at the center of this entire solution that's there. And it's, I think, Vivek, while you spoke about there are 8,000 solutions out there, I think for us as marketers, it's going to be important for us to sort of pick the right tools and show the right kind of ROI on these tools that are there. So that's one of the challenges that I see for us as marketers, to sort of sift through these tools, see which one's going to do the best, going to give the best solution for the kind of output that the business is looking for, and constantly keep showing them ROI on these MarTech solutions, because this is fairly new. I'd say it's 2016 is when we really started booming into the MarTech space. But I'd say this is like the second wave of MarTech where we're really able to personalize on-site experience and post-sale service through the website.
Thank you for that. Suvir, over to you. Throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah, thanks, Anil.
Yeah.
So just to kind of warm up, two kind of caveats to kind of quickly call out before I jump into my point. Of course, on the first side of things, as content creators, as creative guys, we are more on the services side than on the products or the platform guys. So I think that's an important distinction to make, when voicing our point of view. And of course, we speak predominantly on behalf of the creator community, on behalf of, on the creative side of things, so to speak. So when we look at technology, actually, to be honest, and we look at, open source publishing technology, obviously the first guys that come to mind for us are Google, Facebook, etc. Right? Anyone that allows creators of to publish in an open source format. I think Bharat set this point up beautifully for where I'm going to segue into when he spoke about how technology can kind of enable content, or technology can kind of enable creativity in that context. And if we look at open source publishers, Google, Facebook, and a variety of others, and I'm not getting into OTT just now because I think that's a conversation for another day altogether, but look at Google and Facebook, predominantly as open source publishers that allow creators to live on these platforms and breathe on these platforms. I think the role that technology is playing to kind of enable creators on these platforms, and Anil, we actually discussed this on our last panel, is so deep, right? You talk about video today, which has become the length and breadth of everything that agencies like us do today, right? And today, with video optimization, with video intelligence tools, technology tells me what I can name what I should be naming my video, who should be starring in my video, whose music I should be featuring in my video, naturally what the keywords, in my video that keywords go behind my video, what day of the week my video should be published, what time of the day my video should be published, what other topics are trending, and therefore which bucket does my video fall into, right? Subsequently, not only does technology tell me how to package my video with predictive intelligence, it also tells me how to optimize my video to have an automated optimization strategy to ensure premium ranking on every day, despite the fact that the trends on video consumption platforms such as YouTube keep evolving and changing every day. So I think the role that technology plays on the creative and the on the content side, I think largely differs with guys on the advertising and the product side. Nevertheless, I think the point that a lot of people on this panel have made previously in terms of ad tech and MarTech kind of coming together beautifully builds up to the second point that I wanted to make, right? Because the beauty about digital today is that everything that's tangible, everything that a consumer or customer can see today is content. There's technology at the back of it. There's data that we're gathering at the back of it. But everything that you consume today is content, whether it's a beautiful Facebook post, whether it's ad copy that you're reading on Google, that is all content written by some content creator or made by some graphic designer or written by some copywriter. So content acts as the front end to almost every single thing that we see on digital today. The beauty is, and as Vivek said, how does ad tech and MarTech come together? How do we create that funnel that goes from content to whatever your performance metric is, right? Which is commerce. And that's the coming together of the worlds of ad tech and MarTech. And I think one of the agendas that we're really trying to champion today, whether the destination be captive on website, whether the destination be open source on social, whatever the destination be, or when I say destination, I mean top of funnel or bottom of funnel. I think the journey for us today that we're trying to build as a digital cohort, a digital ecosystem today, is how we can unify the lines from content to community to commerce. And I think that's a very exciting story that technology is going to tell. I mean, the guys on social have already done this. Facebook has their own shop. Instagram has tap to shop with hotspots that they've activated, and of course there's a lot of middleware that both merchants, e-commerce, marketplaces are kind of building in to evangelize this journey. But I think from a MarTech meets AdTech perspective, and the reason I spoke about open source players like Google and Facebook, because these are the guys who are letting us experiment on their platforms today, right? They're letting us pick up their technology, they're letting us pick up their marketing products and build onto them. And like, for example, with a Facebook marketing partner program, if we're able to build, able to build our custom user journeys on their platforms and able to kind of pick up from data that we're able to collect on their platforms and marry that back with first-party data that Facebook is, third-party data that Facebook is able to provide to us. I think building that seamless journey from content to community commerce becomes the next narrative that technology is really able to, enable for us. Going back to 10 years ago, measurability, tangibility, etc. That's the story that we've been trying to tell for the last decade, and I think we're finally getting there. So it's an exciting time for everyone to be sitting here in this room.
But Joe's built up a very important point: the fact that marketers have not really tapped into this aggressively. How many of you will agree? How many of you will disagree? Who wants to comment?
Sure, I can continue.
No yeah.
Sure, I can continue with my chain of thought. So, as Joe said, marketers haven't tapped into this very aggressively, and of course, there's a lot of nervousness across the board, I think from both sides, right? On one side from the marketer side, on the other side from the platform side as well, right? Any innovation requires a ton of investment, a ton of work to be done. And when there's a ton of investment and work to be done, there's a lot of nervousness in terms of adoption as well. And unfortunately, the biggest faux pas, and I think someone touched upon this, I think Anuj touched upon this, and the biggest faux pas with the advertising industry today is that you're always compared to your next best competitor. And if you're compared to your next best competitor, everything, whether it's an ROI metric, etc., is always being compared to your next best competitor. So when it comes to adoption, like you said, Anil, got to throw your hat into the ring, and then someone needs to be an early adopter. Like Vivek said, there's a 3% pie. Someone needs to go out and chase that pie. But unfortunately, if the guy isn't throwing his hat in the ring and someone isn't going and chasing the 3% pie, we're all just sitting twiddling our thumbs. So early stages, I think what's interesting is, because like I said, again, we sit on the services side, not the product and platform guys, platform side, we're able to innovate with small marketers, small customers, small advertisers. Small guys always open for innovation. You show small guys large ROI delivery products, and it almost guarantees scale. Of course, scale is a relative word in that context for a small marketer, for a small advertiser. But I guess being on the services side of things, it gives us the ability to innovate with small marketers, small advertisers, and scale up relatively.
Wow. Next, who else wants to take this up for the marketing gap?
I'll add a point here. I think expecting that marketing will always lap onto any kind of innovation or technology change which is happening first, I think is kind of unfair. Because largely, if you look at it, marketing dollars largely follow where consumers are. And there'll always be a lag, in my view, expecting that we say that, okay, we can all come in here and say that, marketing hasn't caught up where consumers are. That's the natural fact, that people would want consumers to adapt to technologies. Once that adaptation is done, marketers obviously would want to go where the consumers are, and there will always be a healthy tension between the two. If there is no healthy tension that the marketer is ahead of the consumer, then possibly we are trying to put advertising or marketing integrations into where consumer interest might not be there. So I think that healthy tension is there today and will be 20 years from now also. In my view, there'll never be a ideal world that today the consumer is lapped on to short format video or to social or any of the AR kind of trends, and marketers are all ready and to embrace it on the same day.
Gaurav, your point of view on this, Gaurav.
Right.
So, do you have a point of view?
Yeah, I do. I would also like to make a caveat here that I speak on behalf of the publishers. My company, GameZop, is a gaming platform that monetizes with digital advertising. We monetize with over 300 million ad impressions every month. And some things that we have noticed in the recent past is that, it might be okay to say that marketers may not lap onto everything. But at least the digital advertisers that we've seen, I think in the last 6 months or so, they've clearly lapped onto a lot of the things that technology is there to offer. We've seen that before the pandemic had set in, of the 300 odd million ad impressions that we were monetizing with, roughly 30% of these were purely branding campaigns where marketers weren't really concerned about the KPIs so much. But after the pandemic set in, we realized that now all the advertisers who are advertising on our platform, on GamesOp, most of the, and now the branding percentage of our campaigns has reduced to about 5% or so, right? Because there's clearly so much pressure on the marketing teams, on the sort of user acquisition teams, that digital products have to cut costs down to ensure that there is ROI, especially the startups that are advertising on our platform. They must, sort of go back to the table saying that, okay, this is the customer acquisition cost and this is the lifetime value. So I think KPIs have become increasingly important for all the digital companies. And one of the things that at least we have noticed is it's not like branding has stopped altogether or branding campaigns have stopped altogether. But at least in the digital media, and I'm not talking about traditional here, but at least in digital media, what we've seen is a lot of the marketers are now looking at influencers. There are YouTube influencers and Instagram influencers. And when TikTok existed, there are so many of these TikTok influencers. I think that a lot of the branding aspect of the things is likely to shift into the bucket of influencers. Trust me, they get you better ROI than a lot of the most optimized campaigns that you run on Facebook, Google, or on Instagram, because influencers have created their own niche communities. And as long as you're creatively identifying the right set of influencers, I think that might be an important trend that we notice in the coming times.
Okay, that's a point of view. Now, in terms of the last 1.5 years, seen digital acceleration happening, and digital adoption has probably been taken forward by 4 years. What would have taken 4 years has happened today. So, how do you see this impacting marketers, ad tech? How do you see this impacting consumers? What do you see happening going forward? Who wants to take this up?
I can take it up. So,
sure.
I think basically, Anand, what you mentioned, right? So there is this famous quote of Lenin, which has become now very famous, that sometimes decades go by and nothing happens, and then sometimes in a few weeks, decades happen. So I think COVID has done that, right? Something that would have taken decades is happened in a few months. And the fact of the matter is there is going to be a lot of tailwind, because digital adoption and behavioral change takes sort of a herd mentality, right? So the thing is, till the time I have 20 friends who are my age group of 65, they start doing e-commerce, then everybody will start doing e-commerce, because he's going to tell the benefits of it. And suddenly then he says, you know what, I want to order something from food, and I do this and I get it. So we had this company which is called Empowergy. They used to help elderly people use technology. Suddenly everything that we used to do went through the roof, because suddenly every person who was 55 plus was not interested in doing things on his own. He would ask his grandkids or sons to do it, but now they don't need to do it themselves. So the fact of the matter is that I think sometimes this is required, the push, right? But now what's going to happen is that digital is now becoming the age we're living in. It's no longer about marketing, communication, advertising, right? So what I think organizations have learned is that we're living in a digital age. Digital plays a role of a catalyst or multiplier across every single facet of an enterprise. It can help you in customer acquisition, it can help you in brand building, it can help you in understanding consumer trends, cross-sell and upsell to existing users. It can actually help you in every single facet of an organization. And there are technologies that per se you can use to make sure that those business outcomes are delivered. The biggest challenge I think a lot of enterprises face is that they set these goals of digital results. And then at the end of the thing, the CEO or the management will ask you, so what? You got 1 billion views on YouTube. What happened, right? And there is no answer to the so what. But if you started off with a business goal that you wanted to achieve, which could be increasing sales from existing consumers by 30% and doing this, because then you achieve that, then there is no so what question of the management, right? There is a book by Peter Fader called Customer Centricity, where he talks about that 20% of customers give you 200% of the profits. The fact of the matter is, how are we building businesses? That sniper approach that digital allows us to do, can we target precise people rather than a machine gun approach, right? How do we target those 20% of people who give you 200% of the profit? Or even more so, how do we target those 2% of people who give you 70% of your profits? There are 300 families that control 70% of the world's wealth. The same way, have you done customer analysis of your most profitable customers, and what is the exact psychographic of those most profitable customers, and how do you acquire more of them? And I think agencies, last thing I would like to mention is that we have to partner with people in education, as well as sort of working with them where make that this decision a no-brainer, right? Can you work on a profit sharing basis? Can you work where your technology is licensed for free, right? We license the technology for Amazon. We say, what, use it for 1 month, we'll double your ROI, and then we split the benefits we give you in some manner, right? So then what happens is easier, right? And service providers like Suvir will find it extremely difficult to give free, but a lot of product providers that we have in the country can easily do it, right? Because there is no cost of the product per se, right? So we can easily run a 30-day pilot for enterprises and then deploy it. But I think we have to handhold them. Nobody's going to give it to us on a platter. So building relationship with them, building trust, where they believe that you have the right intent for them in your mind. But if you deploy it, then the partnership can be really, really big. But the challenge is that mindset has to be of an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset, whereby giving you 10 rupees, I can take the remaining 90 out of 100, and that 90 can be worth 120 for me. Because everybody is coming from the scarcity mindset, where I gave you something physical, I don't have it anymore. In the digital world, by giving you something, I can actually get more in return. So unless we create that mindset shift between the marketeers, the advertisers, and agencies, we'll not be able to find the right solution. Because right now we are in that phase of, if I take something from you, then you are resisting it. And the very fact is that I take something from you, I also believe that you're going to get less. But we've seen that in angel investments, right? I've done about 20 angel investments. My pitch to entrepreneurs is very simple. You're worth $100 today. You give me 10% equity. Let's say I'm paying you $10 for it or $5 for it. But if you're 95 or 90, becomes worth 150 because I have come on board as an investor, or I pivot your business model, then what happens is, by giving me 5 or giving me 10, you are now left back with 140. So if you don't believe that I'm adding the 30% value to your company, then don't take any monies from me. It doesn't make sense for you to take monies, right? But the fact of the matter is, by giving me 5 or giving me 10, you're landing up back with 30, 40 in return. So that's the same philosophy we deploy in the marketing advertising industry with media as well as the agencies. I think we can increase the total value that we create as an ecosystem, because the ecosystem right now is really, really sad, right? 50 paisa is spent on advertising to sell a 100 rupee product. Agency has best make 10% of the 50 paisa. That means what happens is, you sell a product for $100, you're getting 5 cents, right? So then in that 5 cents, you find a data provider, you find the creative guy, you find all the thing. How much can you actually make in that 5 cents, right? The fact of the matter is, that's the reason 35 years ago, I am Ahmedabad guys who joined an advertising agency. Now we are lucky if we get somebody who passed out of, I will not name a college because then we'll just be condescending towards that college, but you get my point. Yeah.
I get your point. So, Jose, you want to take up my point, which I talked about digital adoption, and how is that going to accelerate the mindset of marketers, and how is it going to help that, that gap which is there between ad tech and marketing? How is it going to accelerate that as well?
Sure, Vivek, great points there. You must consider writing a book. Anil. So I think Suvir said right. Doesn't matter those 8,000 platforms sitting where and doing what. Eventually, it's the experience that the consumer is kind of consuming, right? And so it's all about the content and. To know that, I think the biggest thing to bridge this delta is start with the consumer and understand what the consumer wants to do, right? Like Gaurav mentioned, right? I don't know, Gaurav, my numbers may be wrong, but about 300 million gaming customers, online gaming customers here in India, right? And every gaming customer, right? Every unique customer is different, right? So what's a platform like Gaurav's company doing to differentiate a 48-year-old Jose Leon, right, who is sitting in Delhi, as compared to Vivek, sorry, picking on you, a flamboyant, angel investor like Vivek, right? So he may be playing a very different game, and I may be playing a very different game. So is that platform being able to differentiate the consumer behavior on a real-time basis, and hence go back to an advertiser and monetize, saying that, you know what, I have this male 48 metro who is trying to do these two things as compared to a same male 48-year in a metro, but doing a very different thing from a very different OS, very different device, very different form factor, and interesting that, during different time of the day or day of the week, their behavior changes, right? Are you able to micro segment the consumer behavior and go back to advertisers or brands and say that this is how you may want to kind of target your content, right? So I think consumer, in short, to summarize, consumer, the customer, and look at data, right? And my only request to no vested interest here, but my only request to brands is to start testing in digital. The if you're not testing, if you're not failing, and if you're not failing forward, you're not doing it right. So please start testing. That's the way to kind of ensure that you're kind of getting the right platform, you're kind of doing the right thing. Vivek spoke about integration, Sohail spoke about website, consumer experience. These are all touch points, but you don't know where the customer is doing what, right? And what did the customer expect? There are like I was, there was this large platform which leaked about, the customer data. It was unfortunate incident, right? So I, next day morning, I saw my wife deleting that app from her phone. I said, "What are you doing?" So I just read this news saying that, the data is being sold on dark social and stuff like that. So I'm scared, right? And yesterday, as latest as yesterday, there's this large CPG brand and this honey thing going on. I saw a half consumed 1 liter honey, kept outside. We have a quarantine zone outside the house, right? So kept there. I said, why is this half, right? Because generally new stuff come in there and we quarantine it there. So she said, I'm giving it off because, it says it's not pure. So consumers are kind of reacting instantly to brand, the reputation, what you're saying, hence there is lot of nuggets there. There is lot of signals to be picked up and consume it as a brand, and then kind of act to it. Customer is opting out and giving you lot of data, petabytes of data, right? How are you going to analyze all of it? How are you going to act in what the consumer wants to do? I think that's what brand should focus on.
Yeah, Sohail.
Yeah, so no, I concur with Vivek and what Josie said, and some good points brought up by them. What I also feel, while Josie said, brands need to start listening and start taking steps on that data. What I've also seen is that a lot of these brands or organizations, in some way or the other, the larger ones have some of these systems in place. It's a question of adoption, and it's a question of the right kind of adoption and implementation of it. So I think where we will also need to play a role as technologists or marketers or creative technologists that are there is to how do we make the right use of these systems that are already there, which were adopted in the early stages, or do we need to take these legacy systems and sort of evolve them? I think that's the only point that I'd like to sort of add on, saying if digital acceleration is what they want to get into and is the focus point, then these systems are already, some of these systems are already doing a lot of that for these organizations. A question for us to sort of have these conversations with our customers, understand what they already have, and see if we can make use of them rather than telling them to make that investment already.
Okay, Bharat.
I think on my side, the final wrap up I would say is with this technology coming into place, the digital brand building exercise is also getting changed. The fundamentals of building a brand, which is reaching out to a massive base of customer, then pushing them to middle funnel, identifying what is a relevant customer, then going in a lower funnel and driving purchase, is I think a little bit outdated with the use of technology. Because with this new age digital first brand and D2C categories popping up like your Ustra, Beardo, Mama Earth, all these brands, I think they never started with these fundamentals of first going on a massive reach. They immediately started identifying which is the relevant audience on digital, whether it's Mama Earth looking for parents who are more Googlers, searching what to buy for their kids, or people like me searching what they can buy for a beard hygiene. So I think most of these brands have actually started in a reverse order. They identify that these are the audiences on digital, rather than spending big bucks on building a brand with massive reach, building all that billion video views on YouTube, Facebook, linear TV. They directly started conversing with the right audience set.
And it can be a platform like Amazon, where Amazon brings a launchpad for these D2C category. And these brands also think not from a reach point of view. Something which I really like, which Vivek mentioned, the brand comes with a business challenge. And these D2C brands are not saying, I want to reach 10 million customers in these markets so that they should recall that there is a new brand, new variant popping up. These brands are coming up saying, I want to generate 50% of my revenue from these markets, and this is the return on ad spend that I'm looking in. So whether Amazon makes more sense, Big Basket make more sense, or an influencer which can actually drive a coupon code and give me more ROI just by putting a tweet on his base of audience, or by putting a video on Instagram. So I think these are some of the fundamentals which has been changed in 2020. And all these traditional brick and mortar brands also, when they're now planning to build a new variant or a new product which they want to launch on digital first, I think they would have to really learn from these D2C brands. What's the new secret sauce? If you're using digital and technology, all these content, what's the new way of building a brand versus the traditional way?
No, I get that. So you had the Dollar Shave Club in the US, which was hugely successful, acquired later by a big company. And there were other brands also which came out digital first. They come with a different mindset, if I'm correct. It's a totally different mindset. They're willing to go on to Gaurav's platform. They're willing to go on to every platform they can to get the customers. So, but in traditional marketers who, first of all, the guys in marketing are not digital first natives. So they do not understand the power of digital. So that's a big gap which we are working with, right?
I think the gap is more of, one side is the brand which wants to give away the message to a wider race of audience that this is what brand stands for, and that's how they want to build the brand. And then there is one brand who wants to build conversation with the audiences. So they pick up platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Amazon and all, because they just want to converse and understand what consumer is looking for. So I think I would just segment brand building using digital as a medium into two parts.
Yeah, but television doesn't offer you the same. Suvi, this is to you. Doesn't offer the same interaction to that extent that digital offers. So it makes sense even for traditional brands to start, like you said, experimenting.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you tapped me into television, because that was exactly what I was going to talk about. Just a quick, summary before we got there. I think, just to summarize without sugarcoating, I think Vivek pinpointed on his head, us as agencies need to start taking the responsibility of stopping to sell shit. I think Joe's summed it up beautifully and said that brands should grow some balls. Unfortunately, Joe's, your name is still going to get battered even on this panel. But, because I spoke about content, what's interesting for me though is that Vivek spoke about pandemic, last 10 months. Anil, your question was more last 1.5 years. Content consumption in that context has changed so drastically in the last 1.5 years, right? And let's look at 3 industries. Let's look at entertainment, which is where television comes in, which is where you tag me, right? Let's look at gaming, and I won't take away Gaurav's time over here because he comes from that background. And let's look at wellness, right? Let's look at every single person that's doing a 7 a.m. yoga class from their house right now, or a 7 p.m. fitness class from their house right now, which is all happening through some different streaming platform, or which is all happening through some Zoom yoga class that we're doing right now. And I'm again considering these to be different formats of content that are getting consumed in their interactive streaming, whether it's gaming through Twitch, whatever, right? The formats for and the platforms for this pandemic that's being consumed has changed so greatly, right? And in that context, and entertainment obviously being the largest, and with the rise of OTT and what the pandemic has done to OTT, and now moving even out from OTT into live entertainment as well, because you're looking at music festivals today, which are live streaming online today. Ticketing platforms are pivoting their model to now start live streaming music festivals, gigs, plays, theaters, whatever it may be. And we're sitting in December, which is literally the heart of live entertainment as a season in India today. And ticketing platforms today are becoming streaming platforms today. So you talk about even the evolution or the pivot of business structure, the evolution of technology in that context for entertainment at large. Television would never adopt this, right? Because your business models here are advertiser funded, subscription funded, interaction funded, performance led, even inside. And television, unfortunately, does not support those business models. The technology behind television does not support the adoption for these business models and the adoption for this content consumption. So whether in that context as well. Because we've been pushing ourselves, and of course, time has pushed us, pandemic has pushed us in this direction. It's changed the dynamic, and it's changed the ecosystem completely. Exciting to see how we as marketers ride this wave. I mean, I love what brands are doing with OTT right now in terms of their integration, in terms of their interaction, in terms of their performance outputs via OTT. Very exciting. I'm not talking about the advertising part. I'm talking about more the marketing parts of what they're doing with OTT at the moment, what they're doing with streaming, and I'll let Gaurav talk more about in-game streaming. And
can you give us some examples of what they're doing with some of the brands that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, so the age-old format, of course, that OTT learned from television, which was product placement, which was really easy, right? And now you notice that product placement has now become shoppable. I spoke about content community commerce, and on digital, a variety of different platforms are now making that content shoppable. So you could be watching a video, and in-stream in the video, you can start adding certain products from that video to a virtual cart, and that virtual cart can then get fulfilled when you finish watching that video. The video can be something as simple as a 3.5-minute music video that stars musicians who are quote-unquote influencers. And I think Gaurav spoke about influencers in driving consideration in terms of product choices. Or it could be a 90-minute feature film on a native platform that allows shopping as a functionality inside that platform by itself. And it's amazing to see even the larger platforms today starting to become slightly more open-minded to this, to the possibilities that emerge. And as a result, business models are now moving from the age-old traditional sponsorship advertising, CPM-based, impression-based, view-based models to now more performance-oriented models as well, where we're able to add performance KPIs to content, which is amazing, as opposed to only branding KPIs to content, which has been traditional and been age-old for years to come. Before I kind of segue, last thought, I think important point that a lot of people made, I think Vivek briefly touched upon twice when, we spoke about the importance of the necessity of the agency actually to start educating its stakeholders. Of course, stakeholders on every side of the pyramid, of course, clients on one side, partners, platforms, vendors, technology on the other side. We also spoke about, and we also mocked in that context 35 years ago, the IM guy who got into advertising, who we're struggling to see, getting into advertising today, but still very much on the brand side. And I think the question also is that, Anil, you brought up an important point saying that the guy sitting on the advertising side today is not a digital native. We are digital natives, right? I mean, we're digital natives by virtue of the fact that we were, forerunners of our industry, and also by virtue of our, we're young guys as well, right? So we're born with cell phones in our hands as opposed to newspapers in our hands in that context. I feel that the turning point comes for us where over the course of the next decade, the workforce that's getting into the workforce is a digital native workforce. That's a massive opportunity for us, right? Because over the course of the next 10, 20 years, every single person that you're going to be dealing with, and potentially every single person that's going to be making decisions over the next 10 or 20 years is a digital native. And I think a lot of the education that we have to do, that we're taken for granted at this juncture, we will not have to do even 5 years later. But what we will have to do is we'll have to do that same education at a grassroots level. So how do we then take a spin on what we're calling education, right? We're saying the challenge is for us to attract good talent into the industry because the IM guy is not getting into the industry. Yet we're saying that the next 20 years has digital natives getting into the industry. There's a clear educational opportunity that sits in between these two to kind of join the dots, right? And I think that's a big focus for forerunners in this industry, people on this panel, to kind of take notice of as well, saying how can we kind of evangelize that opportunity over the next 20 years. Thanks, Anil.
Great. I'll make a segue to Gaurav now. So you got an interesting model. You've got into 40 million monthly active users with zero spending, purely by leveraging technology. So can you tell us about that? And also that you monetize with digital ads and at a very large scale. What tools do you make available for advertisers or agencies to work with you, Gaurav?
Sure. So thank you so much. And I'll towards the end, I'll also come back to some of the questions that Suvir had for me. So tell you about what we do. We are a gaming platform, but we do not acquire users directly. What we in fact do is we power gaming inside non-gaming products. So if you were to go to, say, hindustantimes.com, or you were to go to, say, an Orissa Post or Times of India or jansatta.com, you'd see that all of these guys have a gaming section within their products. Right. And especially after the pandemic, people realized that gaming is such an important way for people to engage with their products. Everybody who wanted to create a super app or wanted to create a destination with multiple features today has a gaming section, right? And more often than not in India, we are the guys who are powering it. We power it inside Amazon, Myntra, Meesho, and so on and so forth. So our model is simple. Instead of gaming being perceived as a traditional B2C sort of a distribution model, our distribution model is more B2B2C. So we would power HTML5 games inside other products. Their users have one more feature that they can avail themselves of. And more importantly, what we do is these games that we have, like you said, we monetize these games with advertisements and share 50% of the revenue with whoever the host app or website is. So if Hindustan Times users from Hindustan Times generate, say, 100 rupees by playing games within Hindustan Times, we'll give 50 rupees back to them, right? So I think that's how we've scaled to 40 million odd users purely by piggybacking on the distribution of the others, whilst saving ourselves of acquisition costs, but by trying to create value for some of these products that were otherwise losing out on users because they were not revising their functionalities and features quick enough. For advertisers, what we do is so all the things that were mentioned today. So Jose was talking about how users. Can I differentiate between a 48-year male of one kind versus a 48-year male of another kind? I think, Jose, the right answer to that is, if the West is a precedent, it's already being done at a very, very organized level in the West. There are so many tools out there that study consumer journeys, where you're able to create the virtual profile of an individual without really collecting any personally identifiable information. So I may not know your name, but I would be able to predict your behavior, right? And I think that's the kind of stuff that we are making available to our advertisers. A lot of the people who are part of this discussion or watching this discussion are agencies who already leverage the GamesOp network. A lot of the advertisers also leverage it, be it programmatic guaranteed deals, preferred deals, whatever is there to create transparency in the ecosystem. I think we totally try and do that. And to talk about Vivek's point, I think Vivek made a very, very important point when he talked about taking the leap of faith, right? Can agencies and can marketers work on a revenue sharing model? I think that would not just be a leap of faith, but that would also make sure that the agencies have to become a little more choosy about onboarding clients, because if you're really working on a revenue sharing model with any client, you really, really have to put a lot of firepower behind. You have to first believe in the philosophy of that client, philosophy of that brand, and perhaps only then can you really look to do interesting things like revenue sharing with them. So I think that would be my 2 cents in this regard.
Anil, if you don't mind,
Okay.
I just want to jump in and give one more gaming example, which I thought Gaurav may have covered, but because you asked interesting things brands are doing. So not sure whether you're familiar with the concept of hyper casual gaming, right? But today, if you look at e-commerce platforms today, right, everyone's integrating hyper casual gaming in for customer engagement to ensure that, like Sohail said, to keep nudging the customer to make a purchase, etc. Right? And just for people on the panel who are unfamiliar with the concept of hyper casual gaming, the definition of a hyper casual game is a game that my auntie can play, right? It's a non-skill based game where you don't really need to apply your brain, but you just play a game like pin the tail on the donkey or spin the wheel or something like that. And for example, if there's a platform like Gaurav said, super apps that, an interesting point that even Anuj made earlier of taking first party data and the third party data and kind of putting it together. Super apps that understand your content consumption habits, understand your search trends, understand products that you've viewed, that you may have added to cart, fulfilled, and you are nudged by saying him, your given is not XYZ sale, is going on sale on Monday at 9 o'clock, because that's a sale that's generic. But the notification is that Anuj Kumar got 30 points in spin the tail on the donkey. How many points can you get? Sorry, spin the wheel. And I spin the wheel and I get 40 points, and it says avail a 40% discount in the next 7 minutes, and your discount code is whatever. Discount is higher than Anuj. And that's a great example of what brands are doing when it comes to engaging hyper casual gaming when it comes to performance, when it comes to commerce. Anil, just want to kind of throw that in the bag as well.
Yeah, I don't mean to brag, Subir, but most of those games are actually GamesOp games on all of these e-commerce platforms. And we aren't going to stop just at spin the wheel. Spin the wheel is something that people understand. But how do you take the genre of hyper casual games to casual games on e-commerce platforms, right? For the exact same things, but instead of say spin the wheel, which is non-skill based, can they play a skill based game where you and I compete? And if I win, I get 20% discount, and say you don't, right? So those will be interesting things that we'll be looking to do.
Fantastic. So I've got questions coming in. We've already been at it for an hour. Now let's get the questions from the audience answered. Post-COVID, consumers are spending close to 4 hours on the internet, which also means they're increasingly getting better at differentiating between content and ads. In this light, what is the right way in using influencers, given that influencers campaign have basically become just cheaper celebrity or endorsement ads? Who wants to take this up?
I'll take this. I think.
Yeah,
I think
Vivek,
if
go
you
ahead.
look at it, yeah. So I think historically, if you looked at it, when the communication for the brands was largely limited to the mass media, I think it was even consumers had very limited information. So the only way was that there was a big celebrity who's coming and telling you that this product is great. I think today people don't really have the trust on that, because if a top cricketer is telling me about the shampoo which is best for me, then clearly there is no reason for him to be an expert on that. If he's telling me what can make my cricket game better, then I would trust him versus somebody who's trying to sell me a product just because he's been paid for it. So I think that's where I feel that increasingly consumers' acceptance of such mass messages coming in with untrustworthy people trying to sell you something is only going to go down. And I think that's
Yeah.
where
So
the
what is
role
the
of
best
influencers,
practice?
sorry, and I
What
think
is the
that's where
best
the role of,
practice?
yeah, and I think the influencer's role becomes important because that influencer in that category is seen as an expert. And if somebody who's an influencer on car purchase is telling me that this car makes sense for me, I'm far more impressed than MS Dhoni telling me that. And I think I take a lot more trust there. And I think that's what brands are realizing. And the brands who are not realizing are where the challenges are coming in. And that's where they're seeing disruption from the digitally first brands, because those brands are actually wired that way. Those brands are not wired by signing on big celebrities and doing all of that traditional marketing funnel, which even Bharat was pointing about. And I think that's where the going forward, I feel the biggest challenge will be on these legacy brands and how they adapt their practices, because the practices of one to many, whether it is for brand endorsement, whether it is for community building, is quite outdated. And I think that disruption is happening right now by companies who are digitally native companies and are realizing that that's the only way their consumers are going to trust them.
So Anil, I can just add a little bit to this. I've
Oh
actually
God, I think I've lost you guys. My AirPods just stopped functioning. Apple has this problem.
okay,
That
so
AirPods stop functioning.
so even if Anil can't hear us, I'll just carry on. Hopefully her AirPods come back on. So just adding to this, I think I'm very, very bullish about this whole influencer space. And the way I look at it from a bird's eye view, right? The total advertising industry of India is, let's say, 70,000 crores. But if you take the reach of even the biggest publishers in the country, in some cases, 1/10 of the top influencers, some cases, half of the top influencer. So in fact, a few influencers itself, if they have a larger reach than the largest media houses in the country. So 30 years ago, 20 years ago, basically a Shah Rukh Khan equivalent needed Filmfare. Today, a Filmfare needs Shah Rukh Khan, right? So I think that change has happened. Today, the total influencer marketplace they've captured will be a few thousand crores at best, But our 70,000 crores are getting few thousand crores for double, triple the reach across every single tier 2 town, every single population of who's on the internet already, right? So that's going to be a big space. But the thing is, the way it has to be approached is slightly different, right? Earlier, you would take an endorsement of a celebrity who has 100 million followers and you show a car ad. That's replicating what conventional media is all about. But what I've done is that, okay, how do you do a sniper approach and say, okay, what are the 5-6 ways in which brands are going to engage? Is it going to be influencer commerce? So I've invested in this company in UK, which basically what it does is it builds an e-commerce shop for your influencer. They can curate the products. They can choose from hundreds of brands that you've tied up with. They build their own shop. And what do they sell? They get a 20-25% margin off what sales they do. But then what happens is there are millions of influencers can have millions of shops, but curated in a way they select the products. Out of the million products that they have access to, they select the 50 products or 100 products that they would like to sell, right? But then there's one model.
Kardashian's done something like that. I mean, she's got her own brand, which is digital again and valued at a few $1 billion now.
Wow.
But it's different from what you're doing.
Yeah. Similarly, then there is influencer education, there is influencer quizzing, there's influencer platform management, the influencer advertising. There are so many opportunities out here. But if you take the total reach, right, these guys would have 600, 700 million sort of reach across all the influencers, the top 10,000, top 50,000, top million of them. Imagine the kind of engagement you can create, right? Even influencer education. Like, I'm just one example I'll give you, which is to elaborate the point. So I invested in this company that does quizzes with influencers. So they just get 500, 600 people who play a quiz contest, like a KBC for 600 people. But what it does is you're a makeup artist and you say that, listen, what is the best way to put foundation? Do you use a brush or do you use a sponge? And then, the correct answer is brush. But then she explains that, when you paint a wall, why do you use a brush? Because you don't want any blobs in the wall. Same way when you're applying foundation, you don't need blobs on your face. That's the reason you should use a brush. Now, this example was shared to me in the investor pitch when these guys were pitching to me for funding. I have not forgotten it, and I don't put foundation most days. So the fact of the matter is, just imagine, right? You have this one person is going to make some money, right? But the fact of the matter is, every single person will be enriched by the end of that 20 questions. So I invested in this company as is like a real time money gaming kind of a company, RMG. But actually what happened was it for me, in my mind, I said, this is an edtech company. I think there's a big opportunity of engaging people and giving them quizzes to teach them stuff, right? And I said, like, just imagine the opportunity. So I think I am very, very bullish about this whole influencer space. But there are 5 models that have evolved. There are 50 models yet to evolve. But it is going to be significantly large and it's going to become mainstream part of advertising, right? Because if I am an influencer in a digital marketing community, maybe only 20 people know me, but those 20 people I can influence very, very much towards even a $20,000 or $50,000 product. So that's what it is, right? So influencer is not about having millions of followers. It's about having how much power and influence of persuading somebody to take a decision, however small that number is, right? If I'm a guy who knows the richest 100 guys in the country and I can influence them to work with a certain wealth management firm, one guy is worth 25-50 crore rupees for the wealth management firm. 100 into 50 crores is 5,000 crores. So that means one guy with 100 people can create business for somebody for 5,000 crores. So 100 people influence is good enough. You don't need to have that influence of 100 million people, right?
That's well said. Well said. Now, more questions. AR and VR experiences cater to a certain set of audience, but what about the tech and data for the next billion? What sort of experiences are being built for in India that is experiencing digital for the first time? Bharat, you want to take this up?
Yeah,
Bharat.
Yeah. I'm audible.
Yep.
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, I think there are 2 fundamentals on AR and VR. I think when it comes to the application of AR and VR, it's quite fascinating how brands want to use it, how it wants to depict for consumers. But if I see from a business lens, a very basic application can be about a product demonstration, which a lot of e-commerce are already doing, where you can actually wear and use the AR and VR technology to actually experience the product from more closer.
What you're talking about is virtual trials.
Exactly, the virtual trials that is happening right now. But if I come from a media lens and the way the future is shaping up, definitely debatable happening across the social space, how the 5G is going to change the entire AR VR space based on the technology changes and the speed that we require. But I think one of the use cases which came closer to my business over the last few months was how I'm going to present to my clients using AR and VR. If we're going to connect more virtually next year also, rather than connecting on this a basic virtual call, can I take my client into my office using an AR VR rather than physically being sitting in my office, make them understand the tools and the technology and the workflow, how my team is going to set up. So I think that's something which is very interesting use case for businesses like us. Plus, I think if I see from a consumer lens, B2C, more the way consumers are going to interact with some of the tools and the solutions which are built on AR and VR. I think, again, it's part of one side of the brand who is looking to drive engagement versus side of the brand who is just creating a video which is experienced in AR and VR because they want to deliver a message to a consumer and the consumer needs the AR VR handset to experience that video, which I think some of the OTT platforms did quite early to make that experience to be felt. But again, the brands who were able to win the race and who crossed the winning milestone were the brands who let consumers engage and experience AR VR rather than just delivering the message.
So this gentleman has asked about new experiences are being built for in India apart from AR VR because those are again restricted to a certain set of audience. So what are the other experiences? Anyone who wants to take it up? Sohail?
I'll jump in here. So if you look at what Jio has done, they've launched their new set of phones which are available from 700, 800 rupees to 2,000, 3,000 rupees. It's made phones and cameras and QR codes so much more accessible. And if you also look at how some of these unicorns in the Silicon Valley, some of the experiences that they're launching, they're sort of launching it for India first. So even these guys are leading it for the Indian audience first. And you see the WhatsApp payment which has come in, which has enabled so many of the Kirana stores today also to take payments through, even if they don't want to adopt to getting onto a Paytm because they don't trust it, or a Google Pay, they're sort of taking those payments through WhatsApp Pay. So I'd say that the experiences that like Bharat, you rightly said, there are two fundamentals. One is building engagement, and the other is sort of how can you deliver an experience. And with the openness of the AR Studio that Facebook and Instagram has also been rolling out, which is allowing us as marketers or consumers to do whatever, to play around with their systems and tools and deliver that to the audience that they have. I think we've already seen some makeup brands sort of adopting to this and see, how can I try on a hair color? How can I try on a lipstick on myself? Or whether it be if I'm buying an IKEA product, can I put in a QR code, scan it, and then it sort of plays out a video for me on how do I assemble this? So I think those are the kind of experiences that would be in, that are lining up for us with technology at the forefront.
Okay, anyone wants to bring up something very unimaginable? This is imaginable, what both of you have told me, as far as experiences are concerned, keeping in mind, the way the phones are, the way our connectivity is, etc. Anyone else wants to give some interesting case? If you don't have them, let's move on to the next question.
I think just an interesting snippet, but not a case. But for a viewer that asked the question, fastest growing category in VR, actually, believe it or not, is VR porn. So if that's of interest to you, check it out.
No, I'm not interested. Not really.
Yeah, I was actually jumping that only.
Every single technology on the internet that you can think of for the last 20 years, right? Every single technology, whether it's payment credit cards, whether it's cookies, whether it's pop unders, you name it, streaming, taking payment, you can say that industry has driven almost 99% of the innovations of the digital industry, right? So there's no arguments,
but I think we have a clean policy here. Unless you want to go deep into that, then I'll just listen to you guys.
Yeah, I have a video to show of what he
mentioned. No! Please, no. Okay, now coming back to your question. Do you feel that social is overrated, given that giving that marketers rave so much about organic brand posts on their LinkedIn profiles with a smiley attached? Do you feel that social is overrated? Anyone wants to take this? Come on, yeah, guys. Pop up.
So I'll jump in here. I'll jump in here. No, social is definitely not overrated. I mean, that's a very premature question to be asking. It's sad that over the last 5 years, social platforms have killed organic reach, and everything now needs to be sponsored and promoted. And it's sad that in that context, the format of media has now become typically old school, when you got to put a buck behind media to get a little bit of reach. But I think what's beautiful is that if you divest social from the idea of it being just media, right? Social and media. And Anil, you asked me this question in a very pointed fashion in terms of how content on the internet has become so much more interactive than it can ever be on any other medium, whether it be television, print, radio, outdoor, whatever it may be, right? And the beauty of social, and this is the reason why I spoke about technology for the content creator in the open source world, starting with Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Google, and starting with all these open source guys that give us a world, an ecosystem to play inside, right? A lot of people don't understand the concept of the internet, and the internet really actually is a network of networks, right? Theoretically, what Facebook is trying to do is it's trying to build an internet of it, or it has built an internet of its own, or like the best example being WeChat is an internet of its own. It's an internetwork of its own. And I'm using these examples because these are considered to be the largest social media platforms or social networks in the world today. But given the robustness of technology functionality, because you can do everything you can dream of inside of social network, to payments, to shopping, to gaming, to you name it, and you can do it inside these social platforms. So the definition of social today has become so myopic in terms of me posting content and that content having a certain amount of reach and traction.
Yeah, so we have a lot of social shopping coming in. All that's happening, which is great. I mean, going forward.
So I think that's not limited.
We'll come to that now. Question.
Yeah, sure.
I know, I understand. So now, Vivek, this is to you directly. Is education not overrated? In my opinion, it's not only the gauge of quality talent, especially in a world that thrives on observational learning and self-education.
So, I think this is there is this theory, or it's called the blind man on highway syndrome. How it works is that you make 100 people, blindfold them, make them run on a highway, busy highway, cars are going at 120 kilometers an hour, and then one guy, right, he reaches the other side. So what happens is you catch hold of this guy who smoked 2 packs of cigarettes, drank 2 bottles of whiskey every night, and he's 90 and he's still healthy, right? He's that one guy who reached the other side, right? So you'll always take this dropout from Harvard, build a $100 billion company. You'll find this one man is available on millions of highways, right? Every single example you can take. So the fact of the matter is, let's take an example, right? You take any statement like education overrated. Now you take 10 million people who are educated. Let's take 10 million people who are non-educated. Let's take the average wealth, average happiness, average lifestyle, average this of these 10 million persons versus these 10 million people, right? If 10 million people who exercise and 10 million people who don't exercise, will people who exercise be healthier than the 10 million people who don't exercise, right? Where is sleep? Where is this, right? So now the fact of the matter is, education, the biggest difference is that early education was 0 to 25. Now education is going to continue from 25 to 70. So the fact of the matter is, even right now, I did a disruptive strategy course from Harvard. I did a course on decision making, right? It's a 12-week course on decision making. Just teaches them decisions by this guy called Shane Parrish. He teaches this decision by design. So
what he's talking about the MBA is not about self-learning, and again,
I think that's what I'm saying. Now what I'm saying is that all this, people are going to find different ways of communicating and learning things, and all this is going to come from all the things that I mentioned. So I don't think it's going to be that 0 to 25 classroom thing. There are different methodologies of education that's going to happen, and I feel all of them have a place, because as long as it improves you, makes a better you. So I don't know what kind of formats are going to exist today, right? I'm saying all the formats are going to be bullets that people will fire. Some of the bullets will hit the target and then people will throw cannonballs. But I believe that all the different kinds of education that are coming up right now, all of them are going to deliver value, and some of them are going to become huge cannonballs.
But my understanding of this question is that this gentleman is sympathizing with you and telling you, don't get fed up if the MBAs are not coming. Anyway, we have to learn by it's self-learning and self-education in the digital space. He says, don't get hassled about it. That's what I think he was just condoling you.
Okay, so I was listening to the question from you rather than reading it. So I think you better start reading questions properly. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so he was condoling you. That's it. So don't get fed up. And there's another question. In a future where first-party data will become truly gold, do you see businesses opening up to sharing data with each other for better experiences? No, I don't see that.
I have a contrary answer to that.
No. Anil, it's too early. It's too early to say no, right? It's absolutely too early to say no, because brand ecosystems are the way forward, right? Brands will create ecosystems unless you share data, right? And shared opted-in data or the first-party data. For example, earlier in the panel, I think Bharat was talking about contextual experiences, right? If I am in DLF Golf Club in Gurgaon, right, and I'm on the 9th tee where there is a hole-in-one on BMW, right? If BMW is not exchanging data with the DLF golf course and vice versa, I won't get a contextual message on my Garmin saying that there is a hole-in-one on BMW there, right? So I don't think
it's data
it's too early to say no.
With other companies which complement them, not with competitors. I mean, can you imagine in the DM world where
obviously,
you were to share So I think what he means is, competitive companies where competitors will share data. I don't think so that will happen.
No, I think one of the reasons they do get onto their own data or their own websites and drive traffic to their own platforms is to get that first party data. And they spend a lot of money on kind of data. So I don't think, at least in the near future, I don't see anyone sharing it. I'd never say never, but I mean, my opinion, it's a far-fetched.
Actually, they will share it because collaboration is a new competitive advantage, and there are a lot of ways in which you can share data without sharing it, right? So you have hash data where two people share hash data and both increase revenues for each other, right? So the fact of the matter is that, my belief is that will I give my customers names and email addresses and phone numbers in a non-hash format to my competitor or to somebody else? Probably not, right? But if I share 100 people whose hash data is available, somebody else shares 100 people, and now we can target both these 200 people and both of us make more monies, and it's a non-competitor. I don't see any harm. In fact, there are going to be platforms and exchanges that will be created which will help in creating this collaboration. And I don't see why brands would not do it, because it's a win-win for both, right?
That'll probably happen in industry association level.
And that will also create a
It'll happen
lot
in
of and mistrust of consumers for where my data is going. So the minute that starts happening, people
hash data, it's completely GDPR related, right? It's hash data.
Sure.
So I'm just showing you an ad of a brand which I feel that you would probably like, right? And it's just an ad, right? I'm not sending an email or WhatsApp where some other brand is contacting you. It's completely.
So we're still selling advertising. We're not selling data then.
We're not selling data.
Yeah, we're selling advertising.
I would quite agree with Vivek. I think we run a DMP business ourselves, and we see that there are many people who contribute to that DMP. And that's largely, it's not personally identifiable data, but it's largely creating an ecosystem where we know a person not by a name, but with a device ID, we would know more attributes based on which you can make better guesstimates, better predictions on what might interest that person. And that's for the benefit of everybody who's using it. So I think it's already happening and it will only grow more. And I think what Vivek mentioned, I think I would fully agree with that.
I think it's already.
I love this. Contrary opinions. Bharat, what were you saying?
It's already happening, like Anuj said. So all the e-commerce companies, somewhere down the line, are sharing their data with competitors also. There are a lot of platforms where they share their data in terms of transactions as well, and which other competing brands take a leverage, but it's a handshake happening. Similarly, in this pandemic, there were a lot of OTTs who did a handshake. So the global OTTs started using local OTTs to promote their shows. One OTT promoting their content on another OTT, already realizing which device ID they should target, what's the duplicated base, what's the unduplicated base. So at an industry level, at a category level, e-commerce, OTT, some of these are already doing. But when it comes to, if I talk about telecom, maybe an Airtel would never want to share their data on Vodafone. But again, on platforms like DSP, the carrier level targeting is already available. So Airtel can still target a Jio and a Vodafone customer. Similarly, if I go into an FMCG space, maybe a Pepsi would not want to share their data with Coke. But again, there are a lot of proxies available where Coke can still engage with the Pepsi consumer on an Amazon or a Big Basket on a Groffer. So somewhere down the line, what Vivek and other people on the panel and Anuj are saying, it's not happening in a one-to way where you are releasing an email ID, phone number, or a physical address of a customer. You are just sharing non-PII data, not personal information. And this is how you're collaborating with the industry, because you also want to know 10 other things about your customer, which you don't know right now. So if I know people who are recharging my carrier phone using Paytm, I also want to know what other things they're doing on Paytm. How can I collaborate a business partnership? If I'm an FMCG, I know after engaging with my ad and buying my product, people offline are going in Cafe Coffee Day. So how can I place my product in Cafe Coffee Day on their menu to drive a meaningful partnership, even knowing that Cafe Coffee Day would also sell a similar type of recipe, which can be competing to my brand.
Great, thanks for that. So we are differing views. I'm glad we are differing views. Very happy to hear that. Now there's another question. What is the most underrated technology today that will change tomorrow? Who wants to take that?
I'll just give one.
Come on, guys.
I think blockchain is the most underrated right now. People only see it from Bitcoin, crypto, and all that. But there are a lot of use cases which the industry is not even focusing on. But I think in the evolved world, there are a lot of companies who are coming to solve this data sharing policies, to solve the customer identification, plus to help build a transparent ecosystem. So I clearly see blockchain is really underrated right now.
You won't need the intermediaries over there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Anyone else? Technology today that will change tomorrow?
I think CDP, the version, the way it exists today, it is evolving as we are speaking. We have one of the largest CDP platforms in the world, right side of the quadrant, with Epsilon, which is a group company. It's evolving as we are speaking, right? So looking at the lifetime value of a customer, that will change, and the customers and brands will kind of understand the value of how can they look at lifetime value of a customer. So I think CDPs would kind of evolve, and that would become integral part of marketeers and brands.
Okay, more questions since nobody else is answering. Which is greater when it comes to using? Sorry, who wants to speak?
Sorry, I was just going to add a quick snippet. I think for me, fastest emerging tech is, I think, voice. I think what voice is going to do with search, what voice is going to do with activation, I think is the most exciting story. Voice is now making its segue into gaming. I'm sure Gaurav has a point of view on that as well. I think for me, I think by far the most exciting emerging tech is voice, and very excited to see what next couple of years has.
Voice-based search, voice-based, whatever.
Activation,
then
everything.
video search, video SEO, all that is coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now, which is greater when it comes to using an influencer's reach? Which is greater when it comes to using an influencer's reach or quality of engagement? How does a brand know which is better for it?
Yeah.
Who wants to?
I think I could do that because we work with influencers a lot. I think hands down the answer is going to be quality, because we've seen influencers who are able to bring a lot of views, but if your product is just not suited to the views that the influencer is getting, you might get 1 million views, but you may not generate a single lead out of it, right? So I think that's the easiest way of answering that question. But I do understand where the question is coming from. What if an influencer is able to offer, say, 100 views only, and somebody else offers, say, 2 million views at the same price, right? What do you take? So I think then it will depend upon what the immediate objective is. Do you want to create more impressions of your brand, or do you really want to sort of generate leads out of that immediate campaign, right? What we personally do, and it's been extremely successful for us, is most of the influencers that are doing really, really well, and they are either influencers on Instagram or on YouTube. And on YouTube, there are two ratios that we study very closely. First is, what is the like to view ratio? How many viewers are actually liking your video versus viewing it? Can you take out a ratio there? If the ratio is anywhere above 5-6%, then chances are that this video has created the right set of noises and it's done the job well. The second is, what is the comment to like ratio? Like a lot of influencers, if they are doing a decent job and they have created some kind of a fan following, they oftentimes carry that message saying that if you like us, if you like me, etc., please like sort of my video. But if you're able to get a good number of comments on your video, whether good or bad, hopefully good comments, then chances are that that video has really sort of penetrated the audience set that was supposed to. That again, if it's above 5%, the comment to like ratio, I think the video has done its job right.
And I think it was answered earlier, this question earlier. If it depends on the value of the transaction you're wanting to get. If it's an influencer who has 100 followers and it's 5,000, let's say it's 5 lakhs per person he influences into 100, gives you 500,000, rather than somebody who has maybe 1 million and he can convert only 0.001%. I think that was answered earlier. So now,
there's one interesting myth I want to bust over here. Often people talk about reach and engagement, and we do a lot of work with influencers. Actually, we've got a small talent agency called Poland as well. One of the golden principles that we actually follow is the reach to relevance ratio, right? So I'll give you an example. Beauty brands, one of the largest beauty brand we work with for donkey's years, Maybelline, right? Maybelline was fronted by an ambassador called Alia Bhatt. And of course, there were campaigns done offline, online, etc. And they said, oh, she's our brand ambassador and we got to do these. How do we activate online? So there's a massive strategy that goes behind activating Alia Bhatt online, Instagram, of course, millions of followers. And something so rudimentary, right? You check out who follows Alia Bhatt. 63% of people that follow Alia Bhatt are male, right? So which means that on an average, for every 10 comments, 6.5 comments are, oh baby, so cute, looks so nice, so pretty, when's your next movie releasing? What is the relevance of this engagement, right? And what is the relevance of the following that you have and the fans that you have? So I think a lot of people get stuck between this conundrum saying reach and engagement, but try and look for the relevance. And when it comes to the selection and the identification of the influencers, the relevance is possibly the most important thing. And then, as we said, we do the cannonball approach, the machine gun approach, the sniper approach. You can have the cat A, cat B, micro, nano, whatever, right? There's a funnel that you approach this for. But I think the most important thing that you really need to look for is relevance over reach and engagement.
Great. I have one more question.
I think the reach and engagement is very, very old media kind of way of measuring that, and I think that's where you need to understand that this is a completely different form, because this is not a one-to-many; it's almost like a one-to-one engagement, and I think that's where the relevancy is has to be the most important thing I would I'm saying the same thing, but largely fully agree with what Subir said. I think most important stuff.
Okay, fantastic. Now, one more question. Is it important to have your own domain to run your business in the world of e-com and social selling? Who wants to take this up? I think we're giving free consulting to a lot of people, but it's good.
So, my 2 bits are, I did that decision-making course. So there is this thing called, sometimes some things are very, very inconsequential, right? So let's say you have a 1-page website, you may not have a full-fledged e-commerce store, but would you want to have a domain name for your company with your email address? I think you should, right? It's an inconsequential decision, right? Because you must have it, right? You need a company, you need an email address, you don't want somebody else owning it, whatever the reason may be, right? But would you want a full-fledged web presence where you're doing a large e-commerce store on your domain name? Probably not, right? But it's an inconsequential decision. It's a $10 cost, yeah. Please do it.
I think the native versus marketplace decision depends on what industry or product or service you're selling. Right? You can't sell everything on marketplace. Some things need a native environment to sell. So they're very industry specific to answer that question.
Okay, great. So now, we've had a long discussion, all of you. I've been very patient with all my stupid questions or pseudo-intelligent questions. I hope it's been beneficial for the audience. And I'm going to leave you all with a quote. And also, Subir, we actually are representing a technology which is on television called Megaphone TV. It allows interactivity on television, by the way. And the turnaround times, the latency is almost 0.5 seconds. So you get immediate engagement. We started pitching it to news television channels and to entertainment channels. I hope we get the buy-in and your clients would use it because it converts your television into an experience where you get immediate feedback from consumers. It allows you to change the narrative of a news program, of a TV show. I know a lot of shows are pre-recorded. Then you can have conversations with your users. But yeah, that's the technology we are selling in India currently. That's IndianTelevision.com. But coming back again, I'm going to leave you all with a quote. Each business is a victim of digital Darwinism, the evolution of consumer behavior when society and technology evolve faster than the ability to exploit it. Digital Darwinism does not discriminate. Every business is threatened. So you all guys are in a very challenging ecosystem where, so much technology is coming up. Consumer behavior is not adapting fast enough. Attitudes towards are still not changing. Hopefully. Oh God, it's gone onto my AirPods now. Give me a second. This is weird. It's AirPods. And businesses.
This is your own digital Darwinism, huh?
This is AirPods. I kept them off, and they got charged, and they got connected. So in that sense, your guys have to move faster. The industry has to move faster. Marketers have to come up to scratch. More digital first natives have to get into marketing as well as advertising. And we are looking forward to a healthy future for marketing and technology on digital going forward. Thank you for all your time. Thank you for being a part of this. It was wonderful. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned from each other and look forward to doing this very soon again. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you.